All right, so this is part of a project I was working on 7, 8, 9 years ago, something like that. Where I was briefly working with this guy, David Medeiros. I think it was David. Anyway, yeah, he's a guy that I previously mentioned that worked at the University of Arizona. He was uh, I knew him when he was a PhD student, and then after he got his PhD, and he's the guy who had the project with the group of PhD students who had no idea what the hell they were doing. That guy. So his this is actually um, part of my response to his model, demonstrating that he's definitely wrong. So at the top here, we can see that this is basically how he thinks a determiner phrase is structured. So you have the base structure, and things can move around because he's a fan of MP, minimalism. So your basic mechanisms are merge and move. So he has no qualms about just employing move to just move shit randomly, but he posits that this is the base structure. So you get things like the, and then a number like for, and then an adjective like blue, and then a noun like cars. So I feel like it's not um, irrelevant that this is the order in English, and he is a monolingual English speaker, right? The four blue cars. As soon as you go into Spanish, you have to move shit, don't you? Well, that's fun. So I feel like this is ethnocentric. Um, his argument for why this is the base structure never convinced me. But we have other problems because here, this guy, the part, the thing that makes it a DP, we have issues with. So I'm gonna leave this. There's some interesting things in Molisate where, um, well, no, actually, I'll mention this. Okay, so this is, yeah, yeah, this is out of this paper here. This one is, these two are provided, and this one I'm speculating on being a possible thing. Okay, so this option is not possible. That's what the little asterisk means. This option is. And the interesting thing here is between your demonstrative, this guy, which is here, and your noun, this guy, which is here, you have the fucking verb. So that's a problem. And then down here, it wasn't given in the data, but I said, well, based on what I'm seeing, this should also be possible. You should be able to stick them together, and that'll be okay. But the point of the paper was to show that you can separate the fuck out of them with the verb, and it's still fine. This is still grammatically fine. So where these are you taking the baskets? Like where these are you taking baskets? And it's these baskets, right? The noun is these baskets. See, I can't even say it in English because English doesn't want to do this. Um, yeah, but that's what's happening. So you can completely split the determiner or the demonstrative off of the noun here in Maliseet, Basama quality. Um, but then down here a little bit further is an example that I've mentioned in a previous video in Salishan languages. So here, we have this is Lushotzid. Um, and you can get your determiner or your demonstrative on fully inflected verbs. So in a sense, this kind of looks like what we just saw, um, except it's actually different. So here, these t or ta, these are your determiners, your demonstratives. T is basically like the in both of these languages. Tis is also a version of it, but I think t is the basic morpheme that operates as your determiner here. So here we have a noun, wilsu, wilsu. It does not have a determiner on it. This is an actual noun though, right here, wilsu. And then here, this is your verb. It has a determiner on it. Te ochara. And then here we have another noun with a determiner on it. Te asquabai. My pronunciation is probably far from perfect, but for a random white dude who's never been up north, I'm doing all right. Yeah, so we have a noun here with no determiner on it, and we have a verb here that takes a determiner. So that's interesting. And if the verb were to occur out front, it would not take a determiner, and if this noun would. So this would pretty much guaranteed this order. So it's subject, verb, object over here. It notes that. So children is the subject. So they are the ones that are ochalad, chasing, squad by the dog. But if this is almost certainly a response to a question, and the question would have been like, who is chasing the dog? If the question was what are the children chasing, then the answer would be like, I think. So I'm rusty on this. I might be wrong. Anyway, it would be like Asquabai te ochalad te wilsu. It would be something like that, right? Where children would occur over here and dog would occur over here out front, because you front the questioned thing, and in your question you front the WH aspect of it, and then in the response you just mirror that structure. All right, so nuchok, which I'm a little more comfortable with. Although overall, Lushotzit and Nuchok have very similar grammars, so I'm fairly confident that the crap I just said about this is accurate. Anyway, so here, Nuchok doesn't have the rule that you can't have the determiner out front that Lushotzit has. So Nuchok gets the Statumch, the chief, the Napis, gave something or something like that. Gave. Stack. The person. So Stack. I definitely fucked that word up. Shit. I don't know how to do that. Yeah. Something like that. Not fluent in this. So here we are also having a noun out front. In this case, it is the object. So the person. Wait. Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. So it's the person gave something to the chief. I wasn't understanding the gloss for a second. I was like, what the hell? Anyway, yeah, my brain just broke. So here, yeah, really the only thing that's happening differently is we kind of swapped out which noun is out front, but because it's Nuchalk and not Dushotzit, T can come out front. So that's the big difference, the big grammatical difference that's occurring here. And I believe actually, I think it's this. There's something, if my memory is serving me. No, I'm definitely wrong about that. There was something at some point I identified that did mark it as this is the object and this is the subject, but I can't recall. Anyway, so here we can see that the question response we're mirroring the order. Um, so here what we're doing is we're questioning the verb. So the answer is going to end up with normal Nuhalk word order or phrase order, VSO, because we're questioning the verb. So the verb is the WH aspect that would be fronted, but the verb is already fronted normally, so that doesn't result in any effective change, right? So we get so what is the woman doing? Um, so hitting the woman. This might be it. I don't know. I don't. Never mind. The man. I think that's an animacy marker. Because if you notice, let's see. I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on. Anyway, it's been too long since I've known anything about this language. Um, but yeah, so here we're questioning the verb. This is the verb, the question, like what is she doing? And this is chnas is woman, tsi is the, tsi chnas, and then the response is so the woman is hitting the man. Here we're going to question the object. So the question, you're not going to get a determiner, right? We don't get determiners on the question part. So wax is. So who did the woman hit? And now, so here we got, because we were questioning the verb, we got a VSO response. So we mirrored the VS part and the object, which was part of the answer, part of the solution to the answer. The verb content was part of the solution, but the object also was important because this verb is transitive. So we get VSO order. Here, we're asking who did she hit? But now because we're fronting the who and the verb comes second, it gets a determiner on it, right? So wax tisp is tisnast. So who did the woman hit? All right? And then look what happens. We get the object up front. The verb in the response still has a determiner on it, right? So so the woman hit the man, right? So yada yada. Yeah, so this one I couldn't read the like IPA bullshit, so I actually just rewrote the thing in New Hulk and tried to keep it otherwise um, pretty accurate. But it was difficult for me to read. I find the practical orthography far more readable because I first learned about the language with the practical orthography, so I switched it to that. So now, so you can see that this is a problem right here. If Medeiros is claiming that determiners are part of a noun and this is what DPs look like, how the hell is it doing these things? How can it be split from its noun by the verb? And how can it be appearing on verbs? What's going on here? That's not right. If he's correct about the basic structure of language, this shouldn't be possible. This shouldn't be happening. Okay, so here we've got, yeah, we can see there's kind of a gendered thing happening here, right? So like the man is T, T Emil, and the woman is T. So it's T, and here it's T. All right. But this is the T is also occurring on the verb is, or let's see, up here tinapis. So yeah, so that's just basically what's happening there. I'm sure there's more nuance to it than that. I just roughly cobbled that together quickly. So if this structure was actually a copula, then the gender should agree. Oh. Do I understand what I was saying here? If the structure is not a copula, then the gender doesn't agree. And I'm pretty sure this is the one that occurs. This is the one that occurs. You don't get, on the verb, you don't get agreement. You get just T. I'm pretty sure, based on my past experience with the language. But who knows? I could be fucking wrong about that. And there's a couple more. See, this is hard to read. This is some bullshit. This is hard to read right here. Anyway, yeah. So here I have a little bit of where far does it go? I have a little bit of an analysis here. Blah blah blah. So compared to where the verbal prefix u specifies the conventionally positioned argument squabite, is the object of chalad. This suggests that the verb in NVN sequences is a normally functioning verb with scope over the full clause, and that the determiner that appears before it is not a nominalizing morpheme at all, but merely serves the syntactic purpose of disassociating the verb with the beginning of the clause. Sort of, what follows is not the full clause. There is conventionalized material outside of this structure, right? Which is what we've seen. If we're going to pull one of the nouns out front, we're going to put T on the verb. Because we don't have, after that T, we don't have a full sentence. We just have part of it. So it kind of warns you, like, okay, so that thing that we first heard, that wasn't a verb, that was actually a noun, and now we're going to get into the rest of it so that we can kind of help your brain understand what the hell is happening fast enough to actually hold a conversation. Right? And this happens precisely to precisely describe their role on nominals cross-linguistically. Yeah, so if you look at it, in English, you can have words that can act as nouns or verbs, but if you put the on it, it's definitely a noun now. It doesn't, and the reason that it's a noun, the difference between a noun and a verb is fundamentally that verbs have scope over a whole bunch of things, and like adjectives are kind of a middle category. They have like reduced scope, and then a noun has no scope, right? So like what's happening here is it's the T on the verb is telling you that the scope has been reduced, more in line with how nouns operate. In the case of Maliseet, demonstratives seem to have this standard role as well as a generalized ability to stand alone as syntactic objects so long as their reference can be resolved. Also, yeah, this isn't mentioned up there, but in the paper he did mention that if it's something that we've already mentioned, if it's something that's already come up in the discourse, then this is much more common it's much more likely to happen, right? And then like when it gets resolved at the end of the sentence, it's just clarification. It's not like, right, we don't have to say these baskets because we've been talking about baskets for a minute. We already know what we're talking about, so you can kind of just be like, yeah, these put them in, put it in there, the baskets, something like that. Note the relevance of this purely functional rule to the grammaticality of the following sentences. Who did John tell the man that Bill met? That's borderline. Who did Bill meet? What did John tell the man? And then this one is bad. Who did John tell the story that Bill met? Yeah, what the fuck? And this is the combination of who did Bill meet and who did John tell the story to. But here, your, what is happening here? Who did John tell the man Bill met? Yeah, okay, so these are co-indexed. These are not co-indexed. Right. So here we're gonna have to have some sort of higher valence in order to be able to resolve this. And fundamentally, if you have demonstratives occurring like this, you can't be doing that. They just don't have that power. This doesn't pose a significant problem for Medeiros account, but it does demonstrate that D is arguably not strictly a part of nominal structures cross-linguistically, either within nominals or in connection with them. Yeah, because it's occurring outside of nominals. We can break them up in Maliseet, or it occurs on verbs. So, yeah, not even in connection with a noun at all in that point. But instead merely a category of markup tokens, comprising a simple markup language whose semantics resolves around the syntactic scope of its arguments. Yeah, that's pretty much what I just said. Yeah, that it's basically telling you that the thing that this has scope over, the thing that this is operating over, has a reduced or zero valence. It doesn't, it's going to act like, say it's normally a transitive verb. Well, in the following structure, it doesn't look transitive. It's only going to have one argument. Or if it's normally an intransitive verb, it's going to operate like a noun. It's not going to have any arguments. Something like that. Which is subject to highly variable discretization. This puts D on more equal cognitive footing with every other arbitrary category, syntactic or not. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot in this, as you probably saw here. I was fiddling around with Arabic. Yeah, there's a lot in this, so I don't know if I'll ever like cover all of it or what it's all about. But I thought that would be interesting to show, to muddle through some actual examples of that thing I was saying in another video, where in these Seleshan languages, you can go, your responses to a question mirror the shape of the question, right? So what is the woman doing? Doing what? The woman hit the woman, the man. Right, so this is the normal word order anyway. But here, so who the hit the woman? Who the hit the woman? The man that hit the woman, right? So this is not a normal word order, right? So this verb, it wants to be like this. Yeah, that was bad. But it wants to be out here. See how it's not marked in any way. It's happiest here. Generally in language, when you get extra crap on something, it means that something happened to it, and this is not the normal default way for it to be. So this is the normal default way for it to be, most likely. And it turns out that it is. If you look at the language as a whole, this is the default, pretty much the base word order. Verb, subject, object. So this doesn't need to be marked. This does because it's something changed about it. And what we did was we fronted the object. And because we fronted the object for the sake of the question, because the question element has to be fronted, the response also has to have um, the corresponding element fronted. So in both of these cases, um, you get right? Same exact thing. But the fronted part, lux, who, and the answer, the man. So it just copies. It just copies the word order. And these little determiner dudes come along for the ride. They do interesting things that if you were only looking at languages like English and Greek and whatever, you wouldn't come to this realization that this is even possible in natural languages. So, and notably, Mr. Medeiros, Dr. Medeiros now, never really looked at anything outside of Europe. So, when I was, I don't know, working with him, harassing him, something like that, I would frequently bring in examples of stuff from all over the world, and he'd be like, "Oh, well, that's not a problem. We're not ethnocentric. It's not a problem." And then it turns out to be a problem because he's ethnocentric. So, yeah. Anyway,